now what I want to show you is essentially how to lay out blueprints for an airplane. So if you want to model an airplane in a more advanced way. Some people will use image planes, and just about every tutorial you look out there on the internet for is going to show you how to use image planes to create reference images. And image planes are great. They work really well. The problem that I have with them is they're a little harder to adjust and to change. And so I've developed the plans to do it this way, realizing that not everybody does it this way, but that's okay. Everybody can, as long as you're accomplishing the same task, it doesn't matter how you accomplish that task. So I need to go to the internet and I need to find an airplane that I want to use as a reference. Now you can just go to straight up to Google and look up airplane references. Go to images, and there's a couple on there, which is great. Usually you just find references of the movie Airplane, or for whatever reason, Zach Braff. Instead, there's a website called the-blueprints.com. That's the-blueprints.com. At the-blueprints.com, they have technical drawings of all sorts of things, from airplanes to trains to cars to weapons to even science fiction. So to log in here, you'll probably want to create your own account, and there are drawings here that cost money. If you find the vector images, you're gonna pay for those vector images. If you want high resolution, you're gonna pay for those. But there's plenty of free stuff. Now it looks like I'm already logged in. My login information is ANM class, and the password is password. And yes, I'm going to put this up on the internet, but you are probably the only people that are going to be watching it. So not too worried about my account information. Also, there's no payment information. So if somebody wants to buy something, they're welcome to do it, because then I get it for free. Anyway, so then I go to the Blueprints database. And like I said, trucks, buses, cars, motorcycles, helicopters, ships, all sorts of fun stuff. I'm going to pick World War II airplanes, because World War II airplanes are great. But yeah, they have, I mean, you look in here, they've got all sorts of Star Trek vehicles. There are some Star Wars vehicles. I don't know what Yamato is. I guess I would have to be on the in on that. But here's World War II airplanes. So I'm going to go into World War II airplanes. And if you know some of the manufacturers, great. If not, just pick one at random. So we'll just do a North American. And when you're looking at these different, plans, what you want to look for is up here at the top. You want to look for at least three check marks. This stands for front, top, rear, and side. So the more views you have, the better your reference is going to be. If you only have one view, if you only have the front, you're only going to be able to really view it from the front. But in having at least three, you're able to get it to work out pretty well. 4 is good too, but as you can see as we scroll down here, there's not a lot of images that have 4. The other thing you're going to want to look for, like I said, the vector are going to cost you money, but you're going to want to look for resolution, something with a decent resolution. I'm going to click this one totally at random. I don't know anything about it. If you know a little bit more about airplanes, great. You can find one that you like. Otherwise, just browse for a few minutes and find something. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different to model, but I'm kind of excited by the challenge of it. So I'm going to go ahead and download this. You can see that this has a top view, a bottom view, a front view, and a side view, and that's great. And then it even gives you some of the profiles, which is really, really nice, so that you could even use these profiles later on. That's unique. I've never run into one quite like that. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file, and depending on your computer is going to depend on how you save it, but for the most part, if you right-click and go Save Image As, it's going to give you the option to save it. Now, I will always put my files in a project folder. That's why I told you to set up the project folder. If you put them in the source images files, if you take this home or you go to a different computer, as long as you have your project file, you'll have your reference with you. So I'm going to save this in my source images folder of my airplane file. So now I'm done with the internet. I can leave the internet alone for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and open up this image in Photoshop. There's going to be some downtime on this video, but that's okay. Anim class is the login. The password is password. That faint voice might not have been picked up.
Thanks, bro. Pick you up in the limousine.
And that faint voice will get picked up on the video, and people will go, "What?"
Because context.
Yes, context, right? So I'm waiting for Photoshop to open, and it looks like it did. So in Photoshop, I'm just going to go File, Open, navigate to that folder, wherever you've downloaded it, and you have an airplane. Or you should. Oh, it's okay. My Photoshop was hiding over here in the corner. All right. So here's my image. Now my job is essentially to cut this up into different sections. Now, given that I have a top and a bottom, I may want to use both of them. I may not. It's your call. We'll do it just in case. What I want to do is I want to create 4 new files, one for each of our references. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to create a 1000 pixel by 1000 pixel image. I'm going to call this one New Top and save it, and I'm going to create another new one, and I'm going to call this New Bottom, and I'm going to save it. I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to call this one New Side. And I'm going to create one more and call it New Front. Now, the only reason I'm doing these and calling them new is that I already have a set of reference images from the time that I did this the last time I did this project. So I'm just giving them a unique name to clarify. But if you want to call them top, front, side, that's fine, just so that you know what the files are. Now, the reason that I'm doing the pixels, you can do I'm doing 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels because I feel like that's just a good, it's a lot of pixels, but not too many. If you do 600 by 600, you're probably going to be fine. If you get down to 400 by 400, it's going to start looking a little junky. If you go 2000 by 2000, it's a little overkill. The important thing is I just want a square. I want a square because I'm going to be able to take these into Maya, and I want to keep the aspect ratio the same, and it'll make sense here in just a second. So I go to my original file, I go to the lasso tool, and I'm going to do the top first, and I'm going to just grab and select this airplane, select the top of the airplane. If I miss and I grab some of the bottom, that's fine. I can adjust that later. So I just trace around the airplane, and I'm going to copy that image. Then over here in my top image, I'm going to place it. I'm going to scale it out a little bit, which is Command T. I want to make sure that I scale it uniformly. So Command T or Control T if you're on Windows, or Edit, Free Transform. I just change the size of this, and if I hold Shift, it's going to keep it all in perspective. I want to make sure that I fill up this space the best that I can because I don't want to waste space. There's no reason to make it. If I make the image small like this, then I've just wasted 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels. So I want to make it as big as I can without actually going over. I may also need to go in, and like I said, in this view, I can go in with my eraser tool, and I can just clean some of this stuff up. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to erase some of my airplane. That's good enough. I'm going to save this image. If you want, you can save it as a JPEG. I'm saving it as a PSD file because Maya recognizes PSD files just fine. Okay, so then I go in to my back to my reference, and this time I'm going to select my bottom of my image, just using my marquee tool and working around it. I'm going to copy the image, which is Edit, Copy, and Edit Paste, or Command C, Command V if you're on a Mac, or Control C, Control V if you're on a PC. Gonna do the same thing. Now don't worry about trying to make this the same size yet. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. Okay, I've got that the size that I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and save the image. And we're good to go. Now I go back, and again, I'm gonna marquee over my side image, copy it, go over to my side image, paste it, drag it out, trying to make this the right size. Okay, go about right there. Save the file. Now I'm going to go to the front, and I got to copy the front. I'm going to copy it. Going to go over to the front. Going to paste it. Make it bigger. Call it good. Again, if I want to clean up the image a little, I can get my eraser tool and just clean up some of this extra information. Go ahead and save the file. And now what I have is I have 4 images that are perfect references. This is where I vary from others, is now instead of using those images as reference planes, I'm going to actually bring them in and just use them as textures. So back here in Maya, I'm going to save my file, and on this file, I'm going to call this one I'm going to call this airplane with reference. Just something to separate it out from that simple airplane that I did earlier today. I create a plane. What is important about this plane is that it is a square. If you start to reshape the plane, it's not going to work. Remember, we did 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. If I shrink this down, then when I do 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels, it's going to take 1,000 pixels and it's going to squish them down instead of being the actual size. So that's why I want a plane that is a perfect square. If your interactive creation is turned on, all you have to do is instead of clicking and dragging, just click once and it'll make a perfect square. Now just to get it out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and change the divisions on this plane down to 1. That way I don't have all that information to get in the way. And essentially, all I do now, it's a repetitive process. I'm going to do it 4 times. I'm going to create a new shader. So go assign a new material. The new material I'm going to do is a Lambert. Under the Lambert, when I create the new Lambert material, under the color settings, there's a little box here, a little checkerboard, which tells me that I can add additional attributes to that color node. So I'm going to add additional attributes, and the additional attributes I want are either file or PSD file. Either one should work. So let's go ahead. I know they're PSD, so I'm just going to go PSD file. Then as soon as I click that, it wants me to find that PSD file. And because the project folder's set up, because everything's done the way it's supposed to be, I should now just navigate to one of my reference images and open it up. If it shows up here, but it doesn't show up here, make sure you hit 6 or do the shaded view up here in your panels. And that worked out just fine. Now I have the front view of an airplane. Now I can bring out another square and do that, but I'm just going to do this the cheater way and just duplicate it and move it up. And yes, now I have 2 front views, but I'm going to assign this one a new material, do a Lambert, and then in this material I'm going to grab the little checkerboard again, I'm going to go to PSD file again, and I'm going to go to a different view now. So now let's do the bottom. So there's my bottom. Can't believe that didn't get a chuckle. Usually that gets at least 1 chuckle. It's my bottom. All right. I apologize. I'm going to create a new material. Create a Lambert. Go to the node. Create a PSD file. This time I'm going to do the top. And I believe all I have left is my side. So I'm going to duplicate it one more time. Assign a new material. Click a Lambert from the menu. Go to the node. Click the PSD file. This time it's new side. I'm pretty sure it was the last one I needed to do. Okay, so now I have these 4 images. And I actually have found that with Maya 2015 that the the renderer with the viewport 2.0, I have to reverse the normals and things to get it to actually show what I want it to show. So I'm just going to go to the legacy default viewport. So renderer legacy default viewport. That's just going to make things a little bit easier. You don't have to do that, but I do. So now it's just a matter of essentially I just have to rotate my planes and kind of lay them out. And this one's a side view, so I've got to rotate it 90 degrees along X and 90 degrees along Y. And what you want to try to do, and this is where it gets a little funky, is you want to try to match the plans so that they're the same size. And that's why getting a square becomes so critical, so that nothing's distorted. And I'm just going to increase the size. And if you look, you can see that I'm pretty close already. Like, without even really trying, I've pretty much got it. And what's really nice about this is I can match the nose cone, and that gives me a really good closeness. And I also want to make sure that I'm right about the end of the tail. So I might need to make it just a little bit bigger, but I want to line up these lines so that it's about the same size. If it's not perfect, that's fine. Because we're going to move some things around a little bit. And remember, this is a reference. It's not the be-all, end-all. So I'm going to leave that one here. Of course, the bottom one should be fairly easy to match, you would hope, because I should be able to just essentially scale it to the same 3 values, and hopefully it'll match. We'll see. It may not. Let's do 180 degrees there. Yeah, there you go. That works. And then I'm just going to paste these values. Oh, I got it. Okay, so that worked. I don't know whether the front and the bottom are the same, which is why I'm not super keen on the front and the bottom in general. Yeah, that's about it. I think that's about as close as you're going to get. It might be a little bit better, but I'm going to go ahead and push this down because I'm not even going to really use it. And then again, I have to do the same thing with the bottom piece. I have to rotate it 90 degrees on X. And depending on how you brought it in will depend on whether you do it at 90 degrees or not. So that can change too. And now I just line this one up, and it's the same process. I want to try to use some of my other views to help make it bigger or smaller, so that I line it up so that the wings line up where they're supposed to. One thing that can help is there's a button right here called X-ray. And when you turn the X-ray on, it makes everything just a little bit transparent. And that can help you to line the airplane wings up as well. Now, everybody that does this does it a little bit different, okay? So everybody oops, I definitely don't want to do what I just did. The one thing is, some people like to have their references spread out. Some people like to have them right on top of each other. It's totally a personal thing. So once you get it all laid out, I personally like to pull them out like so that they're kind of in a box like this. So once I've got them all laid out the way I want them, I can now come in and I've got my different views that I can use to model from. But if I need to make changes, I can quickly make changes. With image planes, you have to go into the attribute of the image plane and work it a little bit. So this is what I like to do. It's not for everybody. Not everybody likes to do it that way. Some people are going to do it a little bit different. But that essentially is how you lay out a reference in Maya using planes and images. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock these down so that when I start modeling, so I put them all on a layer and then I lock that layer down so that when I start modeling, they don't move, but they stay there. And that's it. And now we'll start breaking into how you actually model from these, but that is how you lay out the plans.